Hey guys, welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I'm Greg, and today I wanted to talk about some great reads for Black History Month. Now, as someone who is obviously a white dude, I'm not sure I'm 100% qualified to speak on issues like Black history, but as a reader, I frequently turn to books to learn about experiences outside of my own view of the world. So, in that spirit, I wanted to talk about some books that I feel have helped me get out of my own self and grow as a person, and some books that I'm very much looking forward to reading to help continuing to grow in the future. Now, I've only selected books by people of color, so that means I will not be talking about books like William Styron's Confessions of Nat Turner or a book that I like called Underground Airlines by Ben Winters. I'm just going to drop those two names right here, and if you want to pick them up, you can go for it. And from here on out, I'm only going to talk about authors of color. The first one I want to talk about is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I have an advanced reader's copy, which does not have a very attractive cover. That is what the hardcover version looked like in the United States. I really love this book. I consider it one of my favorites. It kind of hovers around the top 20 in various places depending on my mood. I really like this book. It is about Obinze and Efemelu, I believe. Yeah. I don't know if I said those names correctly. I apologize if I got them wrong. They meet as teenagers in Lagos and fall in love, and they are separated when Efemelu comes to the United States, and Obinze cannot get documentation. He ends up in England and then back in Africa. It's a very good book. I love it very much. It is about the American dream and the harsh realities of the American dream. It's about the process of trying to Americanize yourself. It also deals very heavily with the topics of race and gender and Africa in very profound ways. It works on multiple levels, all of which are genius. If you haven't read it, check it out. That is Americanah by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Marlon James feels like a very relevant author to talk about this February because he just released another book, which is called Black Leopard, Red Wolf, and it has been described as an African version of Game of Thrones. It deals with African mythology, it's fantasy, epic. It's the first volume in a series. If all that sounds interesting for you, go for that book. I want to talk about his Man Booker Prize-winning novel, A Brief History of Seven Killings, which has been on my TBR since it was shortlisted for that prize, which obviously it went on to win. It is a proper epic, almost 700 pages, I believe. Yes, 688 pages. I really want to get to this sometime soon. I'm very much hoping to. It is about an attempted assassination on Bob Marley in Jamaica in 1976 and the aftermath of that incident. I've heard wonderful things about this book. I can't wait to get to it. Hopefully this year, but we'll see. I've only actually read one book by Toni Morrison, which seems kind of criminal. I'm on the wait list for Beloved for the audiobook at my library. I went for the audiobook because Toni Morrison herself reads it, which sounds fascinating to me. It remains to be seen whether or not this is a book that I'm going to feel like I need in physical form, because I've heard that it's kind of dense, and I don't know that an audiobook is going to help me have the reading experience that I really want with that. So Beloved is the one I'm going for. It's probably her best known book, her biggest classic. It won a Pulitzer Prize, and I'm really looking forward to reading that. If you have already read Beloved, or if you think it's a little too much for you, I would also recommend The Bluest Eye. This is another one that's on my TBR pile, and I am hoping to get to. Up next, John Lewis is a legendary civil rights activist. He is the last surviving person who spoke at the March on Washington during the Civil Rights Movement, which is most famous for being the event at which Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech. John Lewis also suffered a fractured skull during the March on Selma. He is currently a congressman. He has written about his experiences as a civil rights activist before, but what I want to talk about are his three graphic novels, volumes 1 through 3 of March. This is the cover of the first one. They are so good. The third one won a National Book Award. But all three are so good. They are really important. It's very well executed. I definitely recommend checking these out. And as an added bonus, he is releasing another set of graphic novels. The first one comes out later this year, I believe in June. It's called Run, and they pick up where these leave off. So definitely check those out. Up next is Zora Neale Hurston, but I'm not picking the book you probably think I'm going to pick. This is her most well-known book, Their Eyes Were Watching God. Instead, I am going to recommend Barracoon, which is a nonfiction book that was, I don't know if it was released or re-released last year, but this is where she interviews Cudjoe Lewis, who at the time was the last known survivor of the slave trade. He was kidnapped in Africa and brought to the United States. He survived slavery, and this is Zora Neale Hurston having conversations with him about his experience. And it's a story that I feel like needs to be experienced because we can't forget what he went through. There are footnotes that tell kind of like a modern perspective on how Zora Neale Hurston approached her interview and how other publishers handled it, which add additional context to the situation. I listened to this on audio last year, and the audio is under 4 hours. I listened to it in a single afternoon, so this is an easy one to get in this year if you would like. And of course, you can't talk about Black History Month without bringing up James Baldwin. He has multiple books that would be appropriate for this list. The one I'm going to recommend is The Fire Next Time, which is 2 essays that were put together and depict the problems facing African Americans in the 1960s. If essays are not your thing, you can check out some of his other books, including his semi-autobiographical novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, or If Beale Street Could Talk, which was recently adapted for film by Barry Jenkins. I have not read The Fire Next Time, but I love James Baldwin's books. I've read, I think, 3 of them, and this is one that I really hope to get to soon. Getting away from more dramatic or heavy books for a second, I want to talk about Phoebe Robinson's Everything's Trash, but It's Okay. I think I've talked about Phoebe on this channel before. I love her. She is a comedian. She's very funny. She was part of the Two Dope Queens podcast, which I loved. It ended, and I'm not so happy about that. But she talks about heavy issues like race and gender and money in America, but she's so funny that you really don't mind, and you come away from it with a good feeling. I definitely recommend this, and it's very current, it's very urgent, and she, like I said, she talks about very heavy issues in a way that's easily digestible. So definitely check that out as well. Now, you can't go wrong with either one of Jesmyn Ward's 2 National Book Award winning books. I would recommend Salvage the Bones first. The other is Sing Unburied Sing. Salvage the Bones is about a 14-year-old girl who is pregnant and living in poverty in Mississippi, which is about to get hit by Hurricane Katrina. The book really builds suspense as it goes. It is poetic and urgent and wonderful. Check it out. It's great. And then let's talk about somebody who has recently revealed themselves to be controversial and not so great as a human being. It's Alice Walker. So I have, for a long time, counted The Color Purple as one of my favorite books. I read it a long time ago. I actually have wanted to reread it for a long time as well. I remember it being so good, and I love the way it tells this story about 2 sisters, and it's so good. But I just don't know, because I don't know how I feel about Alice Walker anymore. Obviously, she's a trash person, but what do I feel about this as a result? I don't really know, so I'm just going to leave it up to you and let you decide if you would like to pursue it or not. Moving away from controversy, let's talk about an Oprah-approved book, which is Behold the Dreamers by Mbalo Mbue. I've heard wonderful things about this. It's supposed to be very good. This has been on my TBR since it came out. I got an advanced copy of it and just, for whatever reason, have never gotten around to it. So hopefully sometime this year, I will get to it. It is about a Cameroonian immigrant living in Harlem trying to make a place for his family and succeed. I've heard great things, so someday, hopefully soon, I will get to it. And then there is a Pulitzer Prize winner, The Known World by Edward P. Jones. This one is a very unique look at the moral complexities surrounding slavery. And part of how it approaches it is that it tells the stories of white slave owners and black slave owners. And again, I've heard great things about this book. This one has been on my TBR since it won the Pulitzer. That's how long I've had this copy. And it feels wrong that it's taken this long and I still haven't gotten to it. But hopefully soon. So the last 2 books have been an Oprah Book Club pick and a Pulitzer Prize winner. So let's talk about a book that's both. It's The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. I think I've talked about this book on this channel before. In fact, I know I have. So I'm not going to talk about it too much, but it's the story of Cora, who escapes her plantation. And this book reimagines the Underground Railroad to be a literal railroad that operates underground and takes her from place to place. And in each location, she experiences a unique version of or approach to race and slavery in the United States. And in her journeys, it reveals things that are kind of uncomfortable about how we are in the modern society and how little we've actually progressed. It's a great book. Definitely check it out. And now let's talk about another Oprah-approved book. It is Ruby by Cynthia Bond. I've seen a lot of reviews of this online that are like 1 star or 2 star, and they just talk about this book being extremely depressing. As if depressing is just a mark of failure. The truth is, this tells, it is an uncomfortable story, but a necessary story. It reminds us about the horrors of the Jim Crow era, of the ramifications of slavery, and it tells some horrific stories that we need to remember if we're going to be doing better and to move forward. It talks about the emotional and physical implications over time of lynchings and sexual assault and what happens when you are a people who are prone to both of those things. I recommend it. If it is depressing, it is harrowing, but you know what? It's a story we need to hear. So there's Ruby by Cynthia Bond. And then finally, if you like YA fantasy novels, consider Tomy Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone. If you like Harry Potter, this is basically, it's that same story that has been popular since Harry Potter is published. It's about a teenager who discovers special things about herself and goes on a quest to take down a powerful villain. Being honest, I DNF'd this last year, which I think has more to do with me being in a place where I'm not into that kind of story anymore. I feel like it's been done so much since Harry Potter came out. The interesting twist on this book is that it has African characters, and like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, it is based on African folklore and mythology, which is very interesting. It's actually a very well done book. I feel bad that I didn't finish it. I actually hope to get back to it. I had borrowed it from the library and I had to return it. So it's not really that I didn't like it. It's just that the timing on it didn't work out, and I do want to get back to it. So anyway, if you like YA fantasy adventure, this is a good book for you. It is the first volume in a series. The second, I believe, may be coming out this year. Don't quote me on that, though. And there you have it. A bunch of books that would be good to consider for Black History Month and beyond. You know, these are not just good book recommendations because it's February. You can read them any time of the year. So, do you have any other recommendations? Leave me a comment. Let me know. Are there any books in here that you really didn't like? Let me know that as well. I'll be back, and until then, happy reading. And a heartfelt thank you for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing or leaving me a comment and checking out some of my other videos. Thank you.